Alright, so the second set, Metal Raiders, released a lot more useful monsters in particular than Legend of Blue Eyes. They started releasing effect monsters that were actually useful, and they also released a number of staple cards, which most of them have now become banned because they're just too powerful. So we'll start off with the honorable mentions for the set. The first honorable mention is Mask of Darkness. It's a decent card. It's a return a trap card from your graveyard to your hand. Um, it's not that great, mostly because it's a flip effect monster. So you're just trading in the Mask of Darkness for a trap card the turn afterwards. So it's pretty slow. And most traps aren't really worth it. But it's a decent card. And then the next honorable mention is Kuriboh. There are a lot better hand traps at this point, but Kuriboh was the original hand trap, and it's okay. You can use it to take no damage from one battle. It's just outclassed by Battle Fader and Swift Scarecrow, which prevent all of your opponent's monsters from doing damage. And then the last honorable mention is Soul Release, which is useful as a side deck card potentially. You can use it to banish 5 of your opponent's cards from their graveyard to stop them from going off. And then we get to our list. In 10th place, we have Elegant Egotist. This card has become a lot more useful lately because of Hysteric Sign, which adds an Elegant Egotist to your hand from either your deck or your grave. So most Harpy Lady decks now play one Elegant Egotist, just because it's a free Harpy Lady special summon for their deck. So it's pretty solid. And then in 9th place we have Thunder Dragon. Thunder Dragon is a pretty interesting card where you discard it and then you thin your deck by 2 because you add the other 2 copies of Thunder Dragon to your hand. So if you have a deck that can make use of the 2 Thunder Dragons in your hand, you could run Thunder Dragon. And also, if you're trying to thin your deck to try to draw into Exodia or something, you could consider running Thunder Dragon. And then in 8th place, we have Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith was banned for the longest time, but it's not as good anymore, mostly because there aren't very many good spells left. But Magician of Faith is probably the best spell recursion available at the moment. So it's a decent card. It's pretty slow though. It's a flip effect. It's basically the counterpart of Mask of Darkness earlier, except for Magician of Faith gives you spell cards. And then in 7th place, we have 7 Tools of the Bandit, which is a pretty good trap. A lot of decks run this as a way to negate counter traps, something that Trap Stun can't do. You also can't chain a second trap to 7 Tools, unless it's also a counter trap. You can chain other traps to the activation of Trap Stun. So 7 Tools is a pretty good card that well, it's actually run in quite a few decks that try to counter their opponent's traps. And in 6th place, we have the first banned card from the set. We have Sangan at 6th. Sangan became a lot more powerful with Tour Guide, being able to search Sangan from the deck. Sangan is pretty simple. It's a generic search monster. You can add any monster with 1500 or less attack. So it's a helpful card for decks that don't come with a built-in searcher. And then in 5th place we have its counterpart, Witch of the Black Forest. Witch of the Black Forest is 1500 or less defense instead of attack. So you can usually search better monsters with Witch of the Black Forest because a lot of monsters have low defense to compensate for high attack. It's essentially the same as Sangan otherwise. Also worth noting, you can search Sangan from the deck with Tour Guide, but you can't do that with Witch of the Black Forest. So that's something that Sangan has in its favor over Witch of the Black Forest. And then in fourth place, we have the most widely used card in the set at the moment. Fourth place is Mirror Force. Mirror Force is still one of the best battle traps. Um, Either Mirror Force or Dimensional Prison is usually the best battle trap depending on the format. Battle traps aren't as strong as they used to be. Mirror Force was at 1 for the longest time, but now it's at 2 because it's just not as much of a threat. But it's still a very good card, and a lot of decks that run traps will run Mirror Force. And then third place, we have the first of the really, really powerful cards in the set. Third place, we have Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm destroys all spell and trap cards in the field, something that no cards really do at the moment. Um, Heavy Storm is it's a format defining card. When you have Heavy Storm, players don't like to set as many cards out of fear of losing them all to Heavy Storm. And it's just a very powerful card. And it makes sense why it's banned. And then in second place, we have another powerful card. It's generally seen as the counterpart to Heavy Storm, whereas Heavy Storm is for aggressive decks. For control decks, you have Solemn Judgment. And Solemn Judgment you can use to negate any summon or any spell or trap card. The only thing it can't negate is effects, essentially. If you're summoning a monster through an effect, Solemn Judgment can't stop that. And because you're paying half of your life points for Solemn Judgment, the card is always live. So it's a very, very powerful card. It's very versatile. Um, so that and Heavy Storm are pretty equal. But I give the nod to Solemn Judgment just by hair. And then the best card in the set. It's been banned for a long time and it will probably never ever come back. Is Change of Heart. Change of Heart, you get to take one of your opponent's monsters and you can do anything you want with it for the rest of the turn. The monster doesn't even have to be face up to use Change of Heart. All the other control changers like Snatch Steal, Brain Control, and Mind Control, they have some downside. Change of Heart really has no downside at all. So it's a ridiculous card and completely outclasses all the other control changers except for arguably Snatch Steal. Uh, and so that's Metal Raiders. Metal Raiders was pretty strong set compared to the first one, but the sets still haven't really started to take off yet, which they will a couple sets from now, I think. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to check out some of my other stuff. I'll have links after this.